Liebe Freundinnen und Freunde der Demokratie, ich bin tief berührt und sehr, sehr dankbar. Vielen Dank. Theodor Heuss hat gesagt, dass Demokratie seine Selbstverständlichkeit ist. Sie muss immer wieder neu erkundet und neu vertieft werden. Das ist auch heute unsere Aufgabe. As you might know, this is the best I can do in German. So, of course, the first thing that I need to do is to say thank you. So many wonderful things have been said already by Professor Heuss, Professor Swan, Professor Schweitzer, Bürgermeister Vestager, Leuthäuser, Schnallenberger. I am genuinely moved. Theodor Heuss, he was a man who knew from lived experience that democracy doesn't maintain itself. He had seen it fail. He had seen what happens when good people assume that institutions they will hold and only discover too late that institutions only hold when people actually hold them. And this is why this prize matters, also in its 61st version. And this is not because it honors one person. It's because it says, year after year after year, this work is worth doing. And that matters more than most people know, especially on days where it's hardest to believe yourself. I have sometimes seen descriptions as though what we did in Europe and in the European Commission was radical. It was bold, even reckless. I disagree. What we did was normal. We applied competition law to companies who broke competition law. That is normal. We ask that tax rules apply equally, whether you employ 5 people or 500,000 people. That is normal. We said that platforms with enormous powers over our public space should be transparent and should be fair, and they should be safe to use. For our mental health and for our democracy, they cannot ruin it. That is the essence of the Digital Markets Act, and I think that's a normal ask. We want markets to be open, to be contestable, for innovation to flourish, because you can get into the market with your new ideas. That is what the Digital Markets Act is for, and that is normal. This is not radical. This is what governments are for. This is what political leadership is for. This is normal. What is actually radical, what is the real experiments with consequences that we're still learning to measure, is the idea that you can have markets without rules. That you can have platforms with the power of governments that are accountable to none. That technology will regulate itself because the companies building it have decided that they should. We tried that experiment, and we are now living the consequences. And Europe is not alone in recognizing this. Australia has taken on platform powers and fought for the right for the free press actually to be paid for its work. South Korea struggled for years to make Apple open its platform to have more app stores, because choice is essential, because without choice between different stores, you cannot have the best possible service. And we enabled that in Europe as well with the Digital Markets Act, showing it is possible and it is safe. Japan has moved on competition in digital markets. India has passed landmark privacy legislation for over 1 billion people. These are not European countries. They share no legal tradition, no common language, no political alliance with us. But they share something fundamental: the conviction that democratic societies have both the rights and the responsibility to set the rules for the technology that shapes our lives and our democracy. So the question is not whether to regulate or not to regulate. The question is whether you do it thoughtfully or whether you wait till the damage is done and then scramble to catch up. These have not been easy things to do. It has taken what you need to know it takes. It takes leadership, it takes teams, and it takes an institution all coming together. There was pressure from companies with more lawyers that some countries have civil servants, from governments who said that we were threatening the transatlantic relationship. Yeah, that was in the good old days. From people who argued, and I think actually sometimes in good faith, that we were putting European ideology above economic pragmatism. And there were, of course, moments of doubts. I will not pretend otherwise. And one of them came near the end of the Apple tax case. We had found that Apple had received illegal state aid in the shape of a tax benefit worth more than 13 billion euros. It was a tax arrangement that allowed them to pay tiny fraction of their profits that they made not only in Europe but also in Africa and the Middle East. And we have asked Ireland to take that tax benefit back. And we lost in the first instance. And I fought to appeal it. And then, one by one, people told me, you will lose this case. Economists, lawyers, commentators. Too complex. The legal theory too novel. You must prepare that the court will overturn your case. Well, I wanted to go to the press room anyway, because you need also to own it when you lose. So we made a loser's speech. I believed in the case. I believed that it was right. And in the end, the European Court of Justice agreed. And Apple paid 14 billion euros back to the Irish state. And in the end, we won. And what we won was the fundamental for people to see that nobody is above the law. But here's what kept me going through that case, through other cases. And that was not the legal arguments, no matter how compelling I found them. It was the knowledge that 450 million European citizens has entrusted us to do exactly this, to apply the rules fairly, because the European Union is built on the rule of law, to stand firm when it was uncomfortable, not to flinch simply because the other side was very large and very powerful. They had our back. 450 million people, when they have your back, you can stand firm. And of course, it was our job to deserve that trust. And also something else happened in parallel. As we work, as the cases mounted, as the legal proposal they passed Parliament and Council, more and more people began to see the problems for themselves. Citizens, journalists, researchers, civil society organizations, the conversation changed. What has once seemed like an obscure technical matter about competition law became a public debate about power, about fairness, about democracy. We did not do that alone, obviously, but I do hope that our work helped make it possible, because it renewed that fundamental political choice that was made in the first treaty, that those who are powerful, they have great responsibility not to misuse that power. And that is not an economic principle. That is an expression of who we are and what we believe in. But I want to say something that goes beyond legislation, because the law is necessary. The enforcement of it is essential, but it's not sufficient. It's not enough. We built society not only with rules, we built it with relationships. As this morning, we were welcomed as the family of Theodor Heuss, with the willingness to show up for one another, as neighbors, as colleagues, as citizens, with the memory of having helped someone and the knowledge that they will remember it too. During the pandemic, the companies that survived were not often the biggest or the most efficient. They were the ones where their suppliers stretched a little further than they had to do, and where their customers stayed loyal a bit longer than what was strictly rational. Because there were real human relationships behind those contracts. Relationships built over years that helped when everything else was uncertain. And we know that in our lives as well. What keeps us going when things are really difficult is the relationships that we have. And if we replace those relationships with AI agents, because it's convenient, it's smart. If we teach the kids that it's fine to have an AI companion who never gets invited to a birthday that you're not invited to, who never has an opinion on the clothes that you're wearing, who's always there for you, well, who helps when it's truly hard? Because an algorithm has nothing at stake. It does not remember where you were or if you were there for them back in 2020. What the Digital Markets Act, the AI Act, and all our other work can do at its best is to create the conditions in which human relationships can flourish. Fair markets, transparent platforms, rules that protect rather than exploit. That is the foundation. But on that foundation, we still have to look at one another, to practice living together with people who are different from us, with different backgrounds and different beliefs, to exercise, and I think it is as exercise, it is a muscle. It needs to be exercised every day if we want to stay good at it. Exercise that fundamental democratic habit of seeing one another as equals, even when it's inconvenient. And I think that is also the basics of how Europe can gain more power. Not in a race between China and the US, but in a race to be a still better Europe for its citizens. And I think some of the recipes are really simple. When it comes to technology, first, enforce our laws. So no matter where you get your technology, that it is safe to use and not threatening neither to your mental health nor to your democracy. Second, offer European alternatives. This is what we're trying to do in the Rebuild project, to make it visible, all that innovation that offers itself out there to support our communities. And thirdly, have a life that's not digitally dependent. Have a life. And long before things got digital, I think that Theodor Heuss knew this. He did not just help write a constitution. He spent years talking with people, listening, building the culture that makes a constitution a real thing and not just words on paper. And this is why I'm so happy to be here with Markant, with Dorfliebe für alle, with Playing History. Because these three embody in everyday actions what this is all about. And this is, and I promise you this is the end. I think we really play with your patience. I receive this prize with humility, but also with renewed determination. Because democracy is not a destination, it's a practice. And in this moment, with the pressure that is put on it, its temptation towards shortcuts, its concentration of power that would have astonished previous generations, the practice is more demanding than ever. But we have done hard things before. And we're not alone in doing hard things. Theodor Heuss hat's uns gesagt. Demokratie ist keine Selbstverständlichkeit. Sie ist eine Entscheidung, die wir jeden Tag neu treffen müssen. Lassen Sie diese Entscheidung gemeinsam treffen. Vielen herzlichen Dank.